It's that time again.
Yep. We are Team Western.
And you are the most important thing to us.
Team Western
Podcast. It's all about the team.
Well, welcome to another exciting edition of the West Herb Podcast. We are out today at Chief's Barber Parlor. I'm Clay Moden with Brad Gelber. Brad, thanks for joining me again today. It's going to be an exciting day.
Yeah, it's our first podcast here on location outside of a dealership, so it's pretty fun. We're actually, like Clay said, at Chief's Barber Parlor today with Jesse here. Jesse, thank you for having us in the shop.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, so for some people maybe that don't know Jesse, Jesse is the infamous Buffalo barber for football around here. A lot of people may have recognized you from some different stuff you've done locally, most notably with Team Western's Josh Allen, as you've come to fame, I'll call it, kind of cutting Josh's hair around here. But maybe for people that don't know you or haven't heard kind of the story, like tell us a little bit about who you are, like where you're from, how did you come onto the scene around here?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'm Jesse. I started cutting hair about 8 years ago. I grew up on Grand Island, so born and raised Buffalo, New York, Bills fan my whole life, whole family full of Bills fans. I started cutting. It'll actually be 8 years next week. So happy anniversary. Thank you. But I started in a little shop on Grand Island. I was pretty much all self-taught in YouTube. I was actually in school at Niagara University at the time. So just trying to part-time job, get me through school, and it ended up just taking over my life, and here we are.
How does that work when you get started as a barber? Do you call on your friends and family and say, hey, I've got this idea, I'd like to become a barber. Could I try it out on you first? How does that go?
Pretty much exactly. I'll give my father credit. It was him. He's like, why don't you try doing this? I was like, all right. So I bought like a $30 pair of Conair clippers from Target and hacked up a couple of my buddies for a few months, and then one just started to figure it out.
Is this something you ever dreamed of doing? Like, what was your initial goal in life?
So I was going to Niagara for sport management. I actually wanted to work for ESPN, but my grandfather cut hair. So when I started, he had a little shop right in his basement, and I'd bring all my friends down there and cut. Actually have his original barbershop sign right behind us here. But no, I was never like a goal of mine. I kind of just stumbled upon it, and maybe 6 months to a year in, I decided to drop out of school and do it full time, and I love what I do, so I can't complain.
Well, obviously, it's worked out very well for you. Then what's the progression to becoming the guy that the Bills call on, or the guy that Buffalo football calls on?
It was just getting more experience in the industry, like taking more classes, and then people started recognizing your work. And then it was actually one of the trainers who saw me on Instagram. Was like, okay, this kid can cut hair. I'm going to go try him out. He came in, loved his cut so much that he started sending in some of the players to me. So it was pretty cool.
And it's pretty cool, too, because full disclosure for people watching, Jesse actually cuts my hair now, too. So I got to give him a shout out for that. He's cutting quite a few people at West Herr, and the notoriety grows and kind of, who you are. But, you and I have had this discussion off camera before. It's barbering and, however you want to term it, has come like a long way in terms of the industry as a whole. Like it, I think a lot of us think maybe about a barber back in the day, like your grandpa went to a barber and sat down in a chair and it had the twirling red and blue, pole outside. And it's like very old school way, but like barbering's really an art now. Like there's a whole community behind it. And you've done some cool stuff with, people that live across the country with barbering. So for you, like, how do you kind of treat it like in that art form? And you said you go to classes, but like keep growing that art form essentially.
You hit the nail on the head. Honestly, it is an art form. Growing up myself, I was getting cut by my grandfather, and it was exactly that. It was, $5 haircuts, going in, slapping some aftershave on you and sending you on your way, a little talc powder. But now it's like you see the funkiest haircuts ever. You got kids in high school walking around with perms and the mullets coming back and just keeping up with trends.
How do you keep up with the trends? Because it's like you've got to learn how to cut a different variety of doing it or different style. Is that a work in progress for you, or do you have to ask advice of people who are also in the industry?
No, absolutely it is. Like I am constantly growing and still taking classes, but fashion, honestly, like especially with men's hair, kind of starts in Europe, and then you'll see like a lot of the men's soccer players wearing certain things, and then eventually it comes this way. So a lot of the barbers that I've taken their classes from and learned from are like European, UK barbers, and just see what they're doing, see what kind of work they're putting out, and start to implement it in my own work.
So let's take someone, for example, who's like, you know what, I want the latest haircut, but my style has been this way for 30 years. How hard is it to get their hair to do that change?
Well, me personally, I'm a big fan of if it isn't broke. Sorry, if it's broke.
I gotcha. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it. But yeah, I pretty much am going to cut you to best fit your head shape and your style. So like if you walked in here, I'm not going to give you a faded mohawk.
Right.
I'd give you a nice gentleman's cut and send you on your way. But
does it offend you that I wear a baseball hat? Because I've always wondered that, when you go to a barber and it's like,
Jesse wears baseball hats when I come in here to get my hair cut. A lot of times he's wearing.
more
or after
laziness.
you cut someone's hair and they put the hat on, is it like, oh man, that's my
That
creation?
one might get to me sometimes.
Yeah, I figured it might.
Yes.
Because that's your hard work there.
Yes, exactly. But caps in general, I wear a cap most days, honestly. We actually sell our barbershop on a hat, which is kind of ironic. But.
Yeah. For you too, obviously, like getting your own business, your own shop, like for you, was that always the plan, or like, because this, for people maybe watching that don't know, this is, you've been open now for a little over a year in your own space here. Like, how did that kind of come to be? And your cousin Nate's a co-owner here with you. So like that whole thing, like how did it come to be, that vision? Or was it like, you've been working for that for a while? Cause I mean, to own your own business at your age, like that's an impressive feat to do.
Thank you. No, I will say, honestly, it was never in the plans. I didn't see myself ever owning my own shop. I don't know if it was like laziness or what, but I know how much work goes into it, so I didn't see myself personally doing it. It was an opportunity that presented itself to us, and the door opened, and my cousin and I, we just ran through the door.
In a lot of ways, a barber is like a therapist, right? People come in, not only are they looking for a great look, but they want to talk, they want to share the town gossip. When people come in to see you, is it the same? Have you experienced that? Do you learn a lot about what's going on in the community like that?
Oh yeah, 100%. It's honestly my favorite part about the industry is like how many different walks of life I get to come in contact with throughout the day. And I mean, I have weekly, bi-weekly, I have one guy who comes in twice a week. So it's like, I'm sure he sees me more than he sees half his relatives.
Right.
So it definitely is, it's really cool.
And when you started this shop, I remember like actually part of the way I heard about it was my dad was like, hey, there's this guy that cuts Josh Allen, all the Buffalo players' hair. Like, you should go check him out. And I remember I reached out to you, I think on Instagram, and I was just like, hey man, like I'd love to come in. When you first opened, especially, there was a lot of media attention around kind of like, the Bills barber, the Buffalo football barber, like that was kind of the moniker you developed. So like, what was that like, that whole whirlwind of opening your own shop and all of a sudden you get all this attention, you're cutting Josh, all these other guys' hair in the beginning?
It was honestly huge. It was a huge blessing. My uncle is actually like plugged into the media. He does work with all like Bills veterans. So every time we do something big here, he'll send out a media post to all the stations, and a bunch of people saw that we were opening up, and I think Channel 2, 4, and 7 all picked up on it and came by. It was cool. Actually, Channel 2 ran it on their sports section, and it was like titled Bills players to get cut or to make cuts or something like that. And they're going, and not exactly how you're thinking, Chiefs Barber, Parlor, blah, blah, but.
And I understand that actually ESPN and some national broadcasters have come in to interview you and make you part of their show.
Yeah, we got reached out for on the Monday night home opener for ESPN. They actually came here and did a special on like a bunch of fans around Buffalo. They basically told me they want to get a sense out to the nation of Bills fans being real people and not people just jumping through flaming tables. So they wanted to get clips of us in our everyday lives, and they did like a stay-at-home mom, a football coach, I think a firefighter was one of them too, and they came here and interviewed us at the shop.
How long does something like that last? Because we see a quick clip of you, but how long are they here for?
Yeah, they were actually here about 2.5 hours.
No kidding.
They had a team of like 7 or 8 people, and I think I had about 6 or 7 seconds airtime.
That's amazing. So a lot goes behind the scenes compared to what you might see.
What's it been like for you? Obviously, Josh Allen, like part of Team West here, we've gotten to know him over the years, and as his celebrity, his stardom's grown, obviously, it's been really cool to be part of that process for us. But for you, the guy cutting his hair, like, what's it been like to get to know Josh and kind of see him go from, just a rookie kind of trying to make it to now possibly the face of the NFL at this point?
It was really cool. I'm incredibly happy for the guy. I mean, I have been cutting his hair since he was a rookie, and I do consider him a friend of mine. So seeing how like he's developed mentally and intellectually through all this, and how well he's like dealing with this amount of attention, it's pretty impressive.
And you also have a cool story too about Josh was in here to get a haircut or whatever. And then he all of a sudden just showed up in a press conference wearing a Chiefs Barber Parlor shirt one day. And then everyone wanted that shirt. And you were just, tell us about that a little bit.
There's a little background. I won't go too far into it, but he basically, out of his just character being a good guy, offered to wear my shirt during to the game. He was like, what if I wore this tomorrow? Would that be cool? I'm like, absolutely.
And what does it look like for you? Because we've seen the amplification. Anytime you get a Josh Allen social media post or tag or something, it just, all of a sudden your social media is blowing up at
it's
that
huge.
point.
It's huge. It's pretty funny because like I'll post Josh and next thing you know, 100 followers and 3,000 likes. And then I'll post something about like me or anyone else. And like, I was like, okay, let's hear what Josh is doing. Like,
So do you travel to the players' homes? Do they set up at the stadium for you? Are they on a regular like rotation here? How does that work?
all three. A lot of the guys actually prefer to come here. I don't know for what reason, but
The therapy.
Probably the therapy.
I mean, just
Probably
this
therapy.
environment is fantastic. We got to talk about the murals in a bit too.
yeah, absolutely. But I have done house calls for a couple of guys, and during the season, I do go down to the stadium every Friday. So I'm there Friday about noon to 5 o'clock.
What's the furthest you've ever traveled to cut someone's hair?
There's a good story behind this one.
Yes. Over the summer, I get a call. It was like 5 o'clock on a Thursday night, and it was Micah Hyde. And something happened with his barber out in San Diego. That's where he stays, and couldn't get him in. So he's like, I'm desperate. I need you. If there's any way, like, I'll pay any amount of money and get you out there. So he was actually flying into Cleveland for a wedding, one of his best friends, his high school buddies' weddings. And I was like, you know what? When am I going to get this opportunity ever again? Sorry guys, I got to cancel tomorrow. I canceled my whole day, and I hit the road in the morning. It was about 3.5 hours, like just past Cleveland. Went there, cut his hair out. I think I was home by like 6 or 7 o'clock. Honestly, it wasn't bad. Incredible. Yeah, it was cool.
And Clay touched on it a little bit, but maybe we'll get some shots from our cameras before we leave. But there's some really cool murals in here that are done on the wall. You were telling us a little bit about the story behind that. Like, why don't you tell us a little bit about, at least there's one of Josh jumping over the stadium, which he's become synonymous with the hurdle. So he's hurdling over the stadium for people if they can't see it. How did that even come to be a thing here?
So the artist, he goes by the name of Vivid. I think he's Vivid Buffalo or Vivid something. We're gonna have to tag him, but on Instagram. But I saw some of his work he did for one of my clients. He did like it was like a Last Supper scene, but with like modern rappers on the inside of this guy's garage door. It was like the coolest thing, most intricate detail I've ever seen. It's like, we got to get this guy in here. And my cousin and I were just brainstorming what we can do. It's like, well, let's get some local heroes in here. So we got the Dominator, Dominic Hasek up there, and then threw Josh in there. And we originally were like, let's get him hurling over the guy from Minnesota. And it was actually Vivid's idea. He said, what if we got him hurling over the stadium? I'm like, that's it. That's what we're going with.
I mean, the detail on this is, you got to come down and check this
great,
out. I mean,
yeah.
It's incredibly done. And I think Josh autographed this for you as well. Is that right?
He did, yeah. Right above his shoe over there, he autographed it. And he did make me very nervous in doing it. He was standing up in my chair. I was like, all right, buddy, we got to get you down here. Yeah. No injuries in the shop. Yeah.
It's actually worked out well, though, because he's had so many hurdles since the original one. Now it's not just the original one. It makes sense for him as a whole here, too. And you've had some other cool stories, I think, over the years. Like, we don't have to sit here and tell every story, but like in terms of the past year since the shop's open, what about just the foot traffic? I know you've told me before. Sometimes people will come in here and just say like, hey, like, you're the guy that cuts Josh Allen, right? And I physically have been in here when someone came in and started talking about that to you. So like, what's that like, just to get people that are almost coming in to ask you for favors of Josh Allen and things like that?
It's flattering, but I remember there was one circumstance. We had a lady come in here and she was like, you cut Josh Allen's hair. And I was like, yeah. She's like, well, when's he coming in next? And I was like, I can't tell you. But I guess her daughter was getting married and she wanted to invite Josh to the wedding or something. But like, sorry, I can't do that for you. But
is there a celebrity outside of Buffalo or an event that you either aspire to be a part of or has already contacted you that, we haven't heard about yet?
Contacted me, well, within the industry, it's called the One Shot Hair Awards. And actually this past year, one of my fades got nominated for top 25 fades in the world. So
in the world.
Yeah, I got to go down to Orlando for the award show. It was really cool. They treated you like a celebrity, but that was for that. Something I'd like to do. I'm sure you guys have seen the Caleb Presley interviews. Yeah. Actually, I'm pretty sure Josh has done one. I don't know if that's. secret or not. But I'm dying to get on his show. I don't know how I could ever get to that stature, but that guy's hysterical.
It sounds like that's the next step, right? I mean, obviously you've grown from the basement, the Niagara University, starting there, and now you're working with Buffalo football players. I don't think it's far away from you to be able to be there.
Well, hopefully not. That'd be awesome.
And it's cool too, because, you know, for you and maybe some of the more modern, younger barbers, like social media is a big thing. Like you guys utilize it. Like we wanted to actually shoot this show last week and you guys were doing your own internal shoot and stuff. So you got, you know, check Jesse out on Chief's Barber Parlor and his own channels here, but you guys got some cool, different dramatic like shots and things you do. You and I talked once, you were developing this whole, the office concept you wanted to put together, but like what goes into it? Because there's a whole creative side to it too, like to market yourself as well.
That's honestly usually just me brainstorming at night and coming up with an idea or two. And we'll get in here. We make it a point to get in here for social media once a month. We call it Content Mondays, where I have a videographer comes in. My cousin who owns a shop with me, his buddies, a photographer, he comes in. All our barbers come in. We do 2 or 3 haircuts and just shoot some footage or get some pictures. And just because social media is such a huge presence right now.
And you talked about, you know, Clay mentioned the next step in growing, and you're talking about it. You guys just actually brought in your 5th barber now. So all the chairs are full in the shop. And, you know, what's that been like to experience that growth? I mean, like we said, it's only been like a year and you guys were really just continuing to, you know, to take off locally.
It's been really awesome. Honestly, I feel incredibly blessed how quick we were able to grow, because kind of how I structure it is we bring a guy on, we get him busy, we get his books filled, we get him trained, and then we bring on someone else. So until all those things fall in line, we don't bring on anyone else. So now we've brought on 3 barbers, and probably sometime next summer, we'll add another chair back here and bring on another barber before expanding and doing shop number 2.
That's awesome. And then in terms of, you know, I think too, giving back, like in terms of mentoring for some of the younger guys, like have you thought about doing like in the community, like is there any sort of like way you can mentor young barbers? Like how does that work? Because I know like in other industries, maybe you do like an internship or things like is that something barbers do as well?
No, absolutely. I actually 2 weeks ago just went and spoke at a BOCES barber school. So that was the first time I ever done that. That was really cool. Just juniors and seniors in high school. I know the guy who runs the class there. He is another barbershop owner, and he reached out and asked if I'd come by and give my story. So I did that. That was awesome. I do private classes, but I'll help anyone. If you message me, I'm not going to charge you for any of my responses or nothing. Like,
who cuts your hair?
Usually my cousin, but honestly, anyone in here, whoever's got a chair open.
Is it possible to cut your own? Have you ever tried that?
I'm sure it is. It would take me a long time though, and I'm not that flexible. So
I mean, like in the mirror, the reverse thing. We've all tried it once or twice. You know?
I did it a little bit over the pandemic, honestly, because we weren't getting haircuts. My hair was just as long as all my clients was, but.
Yeah, what was that? So that's actually a good question. Obviously, for a while, you weren't like even allowed to give haircuts. So for this industry, what was it like to go from that and then finally kind of reintroduce yourself back into the world again?
That was a pretty crazy experience, honestly, because, you know, I was cutting, how do I word this? You don't start busy. So like gradually my body got used to being busier and being on my feet all day. And then all of a sudden they're like, okay, now you can't cut hair for 4 months. And the only heads of hair I cut for 4 months was a mannequin that I had in my kitchen, my father and my brother. Those were the only heads of hair I cut. So then you come back to the shop and now I'm actually busier than I was before because everyone's dying to get back in and my body just did not have the stamina for it. So I was going home every night and sore feet, sore back, everything was hurting me. I was rusty. Like, I'm not going to say my haircuts looked bad, but they were definitely taking me a lot longer to do just because I wasn't getting those reps in, but it was a lot.
Is it one of those things like, so working in radio or working in advertising where you can't get away from it? So when you're out or you're on social media and you see somebody with a haircut, does your brain automatically think, oh, I could have done that so much better? Or I wish this person would wear their hair like this.
Yes.
It's just hard to get away from it.
That's the first thing. Well, I always compare it to like my father owned a landscaping company growing up. And every time we drive by someone's house, he's like, oh, they need a weed. They need to trim their shrubs. and that's me with any head of hair I see. It's bad. Sometimes I got to keep my mouth shut.
Something you've told me too, and I never even thought about this just from being a customer of getting my hair cut, but Jesse will be over there like picking hairs out of his fingers, like actually like ingrained in your fingers. Yes. I don't think about like the injuries barbers sustain, like either cutting them, like snipping themselves, or the hairs get in your like skin follicles and stuff. Like it takes its time. You're standing for hours and hours at a time.
It definitely takes its toll on your body. And yeah, no, hair splinters, people like don't realize it's a thing, but freshly cut hair is pretty sharp. So it actually will stick in your skin like a splinter. And I probably have 100 of them in my hands right now. But
What is the hot style these days? Is it the fade that's really still?
yeah, it definitely fades. Pretty much any kind of fade with something messy on top or some length, the contrast.
Do you ever get people that come, I assume, but like people that come in and just got butchered somewhere, either themselves or somewhere else, and they're just like, please help me type of thing? Has that happened to you throughout your career?
All the time.
Yeah.
People where they try to cut themselves, or, you know, a husband lets his wife cut his hair, or they go to Supercuts and get someone who just started or something like that. But it does happen a lot. And often it's not as easy as a fix as you think, because sometimes they cut off too much hair and then you end up having to grow it back.
So that's a great question then. If you think it's gone too far where you can't cut it right now, I know everybody's different, but how long should someone wait before they're like, I'm going to change my style? Is it like a month, couple of months?
Yeah, it definitely depends on the style. I think the biggest transformation right now is someone trying to grow out a man bun. I'm sure you guys see it a lot.
Is that in?
But it is kind of in.
Yeah.
Not as much since Cole Beasley chopped his hair off.
Right.
Yeah.
But no, that because you're thinking you need your hair to grow from the front of your head all the way back to the apex, and that's going to take you 8 to 12 months, no problem. So people will do it, and then they'll be like 2 months in, they're like, just cut it off. Like,
in your opinion, and I ask because I'm the elder of the group here, but is there a style that some guys, when they get to an age, shouldn't wear? It's just that's too youthful for you. Like, would a fade work on a guy 45 or older?
Definitely that for sure. There are styles, maybe like a perm or it's like a crop cut where it's, forward and spiky or something like that. But no, fades look good on everybody.
And I think too, just in the effort of something we're all interested in is football, as part of like what we're talking about here with Josh Allen and everything. So, we want to get it from, the guy who cuts Josh Allen's hair. You're obviously a big football fan on the side. You and I chat football. What was it like watching that game last night? Obviously the Sunday night game, we're recapping what happened with Green Bay. From your perspective, let's hear, how do you think last night went?
I think it went really well. There's definitely times where they probably should have capitalized on our mistakes, but we played a great game, and there's definitely, we were talking about earlier, there's no point in that game where I felt nervous we were going to lose. I feel like we're kind of steamrolling teams right now, even with a lot of our players injured.
Yep. And I think it's interesting too, because I remember I was talking about after the game how, I made some comments on Twitter like I always do, but I was saying something along the lines of, that second half was not good. I think we've gotten very accustomed to the fact that we forget about how it used to be to watch bad football, to the point where we're a little spoiled because even a 10-point win or a game they had control of for the most part, we're really picking apart. But I think that's what you do when you get to this stage when you're a Super Bowl favorite, is you start picking apart even good games when they win.
Well, I think there's a lot to be said for a bye week too, like the rust of the bye week. It was weird that it showed up in the second half, but in the stadium, it just felt like the fans were uneasy about it. Like they were, not like they were down, but they just were quiet. Like, what are we seeing here? What's going on with our team? And like you said, we're up by 10. Everybody calm down, right? Enjoy the game right now. Don't start freaking out. But it seemed like there was just a little bit of bye week rust, and maybe just kind of held over until the second half last night.
And I think another thing too is we've become so accustomed to this being, the Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs show of the offense, just putting up so many points that it almost doesn't matter. The defense looked really good again last night. I got to give a shout out to Jordan Phillips, another a big man. We talked about him before, and he just made some plays last night when he's healthy and he's on the field. And you talk about Von Miller, Ned Oliver, some of these guys, but that defense, that's even without Trey White being there. So I think that that's something that's just not talked about a lot with Leslie Frazier, Sean McDermott, because we're so captivated by the offense. But the defense has looked really good.
I thought Tim Settle looked great last night too. Obviously Matt Milano, who after the game, he said, I just looked up and there was the ball and I caught it. Like, they make it sound that easy because it really is becoming that easy for them. It's just a natural way for them to progress. It's just like, just do your job and do it the best you can. And you could see that's what's going on with this team right now.
And Matt Milano's actually another guy that you've
a long-time client of mine. He's great.
So when you watch a game, though, from the perspective of like, you get to know these guys a little bit. So like, how is it watching them like versus an app before you were doing that, just as a fan watching them, you didn't know the players. And then you see these guys that you care about, you get to know them. And like maybe Matt Milano or someone makes a play that you're not so happy with, but you know them as like on that. So what's that like watching that?
It's honestly really cool because I feel like I'm just rooting on like my boys. Mm-hmm. I feel like I went to my high school buddy's hockey game and I'm rooting him on.
Yeah.
But I've always been a fan my whole life. I was born in '94, so all I've seen is
Bad football.
bad football all these years. And now it's like we're to a point where we're almost expecting wins on a weekly basis. And I'm like watching guys that I know personally out there just killing it like Milano. So it's really fun rooting for them.
And when you look down the line, obviously, like we all have high expectations for the season. Like I said before, possibly Super Bowl favorites at this point. But, for you, and we've chatted about this in terms of going to the games, like you're not at every game, but you try to pick a couple games a year to get to for Buffalo here.
Yeah, I was at the home opener. I'll probably hit maybe 2 or 3 games throughout the season. I don't do well in the cold. Yeah. But I got a really close family. We all go to my grandma's house on Sundays, all the uncles and cousins, and we watch together. So just kind of tradition.
Do you get to the stadium before the games for the players? Or before they travel? Do they invite you in to get a cut before they go?
Yeah, so if they have Sunday games, I'm always cutting them on Fridays for the most part, especially when they're out of town because they leave Saturday.
Well, you just sit there and it's like, okay, line up.
Yeah, pretty much.
Jesse's ready.
Pretty much. Sometimes they'll like text me the night before and like, I got dibs on first. That's actually what happened this past week. I got a text from Josh, he wants first. I got a text from Barkley that he wants to go first. And then I got like Boker trying to wrestle the two of them, trying to get in the chair before. And I ended up going early from Micah, so none of them even got first. But
and in terms of the barbering community, like we talked about, there's a few of you guys that go to the stadium together. What's it been like to kind of like get to know the other, Buffalo barbers, if you will, that are the football guys as well?
It's been great. I honestly have high expectations for the industry around here. And I'll shout out Kenny from Signature Cuts. He cuts more of the players than all of us do, honestly. He's great. But that was kind of like his gig. And when I got a chair down there, he was super cool to me about it and welcomed me with opening arms. And we've been cool ever since. We hang out all the time.
So if looking for the rest of the season, obviously right now they're 6-1 and first in the AFC. Like, is there a game you're most looking forward to down the line here? One lined up down the stretch?
I try to get to the Pats home game every year, just because I'm so tired of losing them all year.
Yeah.
So it's nice actually watching us beat the snot out of them, but especially like that playoff game.
I think the Minnesota game is one that's really got my eye. Obviously, the Jets, I feel like Buffalo's going to roll over them next week. Yeah. But looking forward to that one. Last night, I don't know if they showed it on the broadcast, but they turned out the lights to introduce the team last night.
Awesome.
I'm telling you, the presentation of going into that, the fans were full in the stadium like an hour before we even had kickoff. That's how exciting this team is. Like, people are leaving their tailgate parties to come in and witness everything they can, from the warm-ups and the walkthroughs all the way to the introductions. Scott
Beeler, our CEO president, in a meeting earlier today was saying how it's a little preview of what a home field advantage is going to be like. So he's confident in Buffalo. And he commented that, he was watching and they kept referencing how Buffalo's going to have to go back to Kansas City. And he was like, wait a minute, like Kansas City is going to be coming here. So I think that's how a lot of people are feeling right now. They're pretty confident about this team going forward. I mean, you could just feel it in the stadium last night. Like I said, about halfway through, it seemed like everybody got tense. But in the beginning of that game last night, it's just as loud as ever. It's really fun to witness. Yeah. And it's something we've talked about before. I think it's just really fun to be a part of the community right now. Whether you're coming talking to your barber while you're getting a haircut about football, you're chatting with your buddies at the water cooler type of talk. But I just think it's like a really fun time to be a Buffalo fan. Right 100% now. True. Yes. Absolutely. Well, I mean, it's been fun being here today, too, learning all these great stories of the players. When does Josh come back?
That's
Can we get
question.
the scoop on that?
I don't want to call it superstition, but it does seem the more we win, the less haircuts he gets. So I hope I don't have to see him till February. One question I do have before we let you go is the mustache. Like, that's taken on a life of its own. A couple of years ago, Josh brought the mustache. There's literally Twitter accounts called Josh Allen's mustache and things. And now he brought it back. I guess his Halloween costume, he needed a mustache, so he has it again. Are you a Josh beard guy, a Josh mustache guy? Does he ask your opinion on any of that? No, he actually does ask my opinion, but I'm honestly, the first question I ask is, how does Britt feel about it? Right. Britt's his girlfriend for people watching who don't know. At the end of the day, I don't need to impress you. I need to impress your wives and your girlfriends, or I'm out of a job. Right. But Britt seemed to be okay with it, so I was all right, let's leave it. Yeah. Awesome. Well, excellent. Thanks for your time today, and best of luck to you in the future. Can't wait to see what lies ahead for you. Awesome. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. We're out here at Chiefs Barber Parlor, the Herr podcast. For Brad Gelber, I'm Clay Moden. Have a great week. Let's go Buffalo.